Any person not wish to be recorded, I advise that they should leave the meeting prior to those statements being made or any statements being made. Any defamatory statements made are not the position of council and remain an individual's opinion. Council accepts no responsibility for any defamatory statements and all liability will remain in the person making those remarks. Moving on to acknowledgement of country, I'd like to call on Councillor Sutherland to please deliver acknowledgement.
Thank you, Mr Mayor and fellow councillors. I'd like to say Yama Day Gomeroi, Walla Bagnani, Rungalawai, Lambo Mari, Maro Mara, Ngale Down, Dilia Yanbali, Garnamari's Gaingal Gomeroi, Yamlanginda, with Nalanginda, Wenangalawa. And that's the language spoken by our families and our communities here across the LJ, making sure that we acknowledge the country that we're on, which is the land of the Gomeroi people, and make sure that we pay respects to our elders who have cared and still care for this country. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Sutherland. I might call on all those who wish to stand for the meeting prayer and call on Pastor Jeff Quinn from the Enwriting Church to deliver that prayer, please.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we humbly ask you to give your blessing upon this council. Direct and prosper its deliberations to the advancement of your glory and the true welfare of the people of the Tamworth Regional Council and Australia. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Councillors, I'll now declare the meeting open and apologies and leaves of absence. We do have one apology from Councillor Lee Burke, who was away on business. Councillor Bett, seconded Councillor Southall. All those in favour of accepting that apology, thank you. We move on to on the agenda, item 2, community consultation. There is nobody has registered for community consultation this evening, so we move straight into item 3, minutes from the previous meeting. Could I have somebody move that they're true and correct records, please? Councillor Sutherland, seconded Councillor Coates. Any comments, any questions? Any matters in those minutes that you wish to raise? I'll put that as a true and correct record. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against? Carried. We'll move on to item 4, disclosure of interest. Is there any disclosures of interest this evening? There being no disclosures of interest, I'll move on to item 5, a Merrill minute. There is no Merrill minute this evening. I'll move on to item 6. There is a notice of motion, and it's a notice of motion that I've put forward. I would move that notice of motion. It's the Murray-Darling Association nomination of chairperson. Could I call for a seconder, please? Councillor Betts. If you read through the report, you'll certainly understand what the relevance of this is. We are in Region 11 of the Murray-Darling Association. It's not the Murray-Darling Basin Association, it's the Murray-Darling Association, which involves 176 local government bodies. In our region, you read in the report the councils that are a member of Region 11, and I think there's quite a handsome list there. And I'd have to say that I'd thank our current chair and chair who will be stepping down, Jamie Chappie, for the work that he's done in making sure that we've got a good, healthy list of members in Region 11. It's exceptionally important that we have involvement in the Murray-Darling Association as an organisation, because water is just so important to us here in Tamworth and our whole region. So I'd like to call if anyone would like to speak against that recommendation. Any further comments on that recommendation? Councillor Pierce.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Wholeheartedly support your nomination, because it's absolutely imperative that we be at the table. But if the role of chair can really push the mantra, and when I look at the list of other councils, we have probably had the most severe impact on the head of being at the head of the Peel and the Murray-Darling tributaries, and to be at that table is absolutely critical, and there's issues to fight for, and that is a better distribution of water for the upper catchment and postage stamp pricing, and I know that you'll be pushing that, so I wholeheartedly support it. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Betts. Any further comments? Councillor Sutherland.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And again, I see the value in nominating yourself as the chair for the committee. A quick question, if you might get a little bit of clarity though, and that is around the secretariat support role by the chair and what kind of workload that'll put on the staff of Tamworth Regional Council, just in providing a secretary role.
Look, there is a little bit of work. It comes out of the Water Directorate. And as you know, we only really joined the Murray-Darling Association 18 months ago. And our director, Bruce Logan, wasn't quite sure of whether there was going to be value in that at the beginning, but we've been to a number of meetings and it's obviously demonstrated that there's a lot of value in that. Yes, there will be some work for staff. It won't be a huge drain on our resources. There'll only be a few days here and there where they're having to give us some support, some secretarial support and organising meetings and so forth. And those meetings are not all that regular. My activities involved in that would mean that I'd have to go to board meetings in Canberra, that's only every few months. So it's not a huge drain on the resources in any way, shape or form. Further comments? Councillor Ross.
Just a question, Mr Mayor. Just following on from Councillor Sutherland. So you answered it in terms of administration. Costs of travel. Is there any estimated cost? How often would you have to travel and to where? And is there, I appreciate everything was said about in relation to the importance of water security, but I'm just wondering, are we confident that there will be positive outcomes for our region by holding the position of chair on this association?
Councillor Rodder, it's actually the position of or nomination is to give some support for me to nominate for the position of chairperson for our region, which is Zone 11, which is only within our own, pretty much within our own region. You can see there the councils that are listed there. Walby's probably one of the furthest away. Brewarrina, Canamble, Gunnedah, Guida, Inverell, Armidale, Liverpool Plains, Moree Plains, Narrabri and Tenterfield. Those meetings are not that regular, so the only cost involved there would be fuel costs for me to get to some of those meetings if we hold them in other areas. Most of the time those board meetings on Region 11 would be held have been held in Gunnedah and into the future would most likely be held here in Tamworth. The other costs that would be associated with that would be if we do go to the conferences that are held in various places, and there's always a report comes to council to authorise attendance at those conferences. As you may be well aware, we do have a conference coming here very shortly on the 8th and 9th and 10th of June. That conference has been won by us to host here, and we'll have 100 to 150 delegates here for that. So there is actually a financial boost for our economy by those people coming here and spending a few days. So, yeah, there will be a small cost. I wouldn't like to put a dollar figure on it, but I think there's also a big advantage of being a part of it. And we did agree to be a part of it, as I say, a couple of years ago, and I think it's very important that we sit around the table on these things, especially when it's water, because water is so important to our future.
Thank you.
Further comments? Councillor Coates?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I also support this position that you're nominating for, and I acknowledge that we need to be aware of the associated costs, but I think we also need to be aware that we're one of the largest councils in that list of 11, and we are also at the head of the Murray-Darling Basin feeder. So I think it's really important that we have a voice there, and we need to have a loud voice. And I think as chair of that, we've got the opportunity to actually have that.
Thanks, Councillor Coates. Further comments? There being no further comments, councillors, I'll put the recommendation to support that motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Councillors, we'll now move on to item 7. There's no environmental planning report, so we move straight into item 8, infrastructure and services, and 8.1. Could I seek to get a mover and a second for 8.1? Move Councillor Southwell, second Councillor Sutherland. Councillor Southwell, do you wish to speak to that?
Yes, thank you. Just briefly, This is a very, very exciting part of this project. I think that this funding, the $200,000, which will come from the Regional Development Fund, is a great thing. The proposed concept designs are amazing. It was fantastic to have a look at these and to see what the proposed project will, the look and feel of what it will be into the future. There's only a couple of things missing from our amazing regional council, and one of those is an indoor aquatic centre. And look, as we know, and it's mentioned in the report, there's about $30 million to be spent on some of our ageing infrastructure that has been let go for some time over many, many years. So it's great to see that we've got the state funding for this project. We're still waiting on the federal funding of 15 mil. And I think this is a prime example of where you've got local, state and federal coming together and overall, not only for the aquatic facility itself, but working to improve the overall health outcomes when you're looking at a centre of sport and health facility overall. So lots of good things to come and very excited to see this next phase of the project.
Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Councillor Rodder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I rise to speak about this motion. After mulling over this whole project, I've had some thoughts that I would like to share. Like many other people, I hear the cost of $45 million for a building and 2 pools and wonder why does it cost so much. Then looking at the concept photos, it dawned on me it's all in the design elements and engineering of the building. The wavy, undulating ceilings and roofs, along with a massive cantilevered front entrance that goes way past the front glass into the entrance foyer, would require massive engineering and construction costs that would consume a huge chunk of the budgeted cost. It is the classic example of form over function. It looks pretty, but is it necessary? Or will it just be another example of a public monument dedicated to waste and extravagance at a time of economic uncertainty? I look at other council aquatic centres that have been built over the last few years, and they may not be as pretty with exposed beams and basic shaped buildings, but I bet they cost nowhere near as much to build either. I believe the priorities are all wrong as far as I'm concerned. Shouldn't we be waiting until we know that we are going to get the funding for this project through the Growing Regions program before we spend another $200,000? If it's a true aquatic centre, shouldn't it also include facilities for diving, a dedicated learn-to-swim pool, hydrotherapy pool, aqua aerobics? You can't do it all. You can't do all these things at once in the secondary aquatics hall. Is Tamworth really not going to have any outdoor lap swimmable pools for leisure? The chlorine odours of indoor pools can at sometimes be overwhelming, plus people enjoy being out in the sun while swimming for all the health benefits, including the fresh air and vitamin D. Most of Australia's local governments have an outdoor pool. When all the schools have their summer swim programs and swimming carnivals, with only one 50-metre pool available, a huge chunk of December and February will squeeze out the swimming public from being able to use the facility. Not to mention that both 360 Scully Park and Tamworth swimming clubs will have to combine training facilities before and after school. And don't forget the Tamworth Water Polo Association for their training games, and I believe with only one 50-metre pool going to accommodate all of this will be very difficult, and it won't. And once the people realise this, I believe they're going to be quite angry. Speaking of only one 50-metre pool, we are told it will cost $10 to $20 million to bring our current pools up to standard. That's a big range, which sounds like figures just plucked out of the air. We are apparently going to receive a report on the viability of the pools. I've said it before and will say it again, I believe that costs are being deliberately inflated to help stack the case against that the pools are unviable, especially when it comes to staffing. Examples have been given to me of 3 lifeguards on duty during off-peak times, and I'm sure there are many other examples. Are we going to run these pools ourselves, or are we going to outsource the management to someone else with the help of subsidies that we have no idea where they are going to come from? This fundamental question should be answered before we go any further. And finally, have we asked a much broader question to anyone that might come up with a plan that uses one existing pool or 2 existing pools, or a new pool with one existing pool, or any combination of anything for that matter, we're being railroaded into believing that the only way forward for us as council is to close both existing pools and build this overpriced monument, reducing the amount of aquatic assets available to the public. I'm voting against this motion, but that does not mean I want the conversation to end about our pools. I believe there are other options with better value for money and we need to explore them.
Thanks, Councillor Ryder. Just to make a point there, you're talking about one pool. This is a three-stage development. This is the first stage. One of the next stages would involve the building of another 50-metre outdoor pool, but that's not in this stage, and I appreciate what you're saying. So further comments, councillors and Councillor Betts.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, I support the proposal, the recommendation to spend that money. I've been on local government for a while now, and ever since I got on local government, the community's been asking for a new state-of-the-art aquatic centre. And I've even seen, when I first got on council, the original concept that was even before we were on council. But I agree with my fellow councillor Southwell, the mover of the motion, that the benefits are just enormous with the health and for the three tiers of government working together to achieve this outcome. And the fact that those pools that are out there, they are ageing and they are just not going to be serviceable in the very near future. I can't agree with my fellow councillor Ryder that it's a monument. I don't think we want something out in Taminda in a tin shed, and I've seen some major aquatic centres that I've been to, and they've been tin sheds, and it's just not where we are and where we need to be. Yes, we're in some economic tight frames now, but this pool will be something that would be built for the next 50 years. And we need to make it so that it is fit for purpose for the community of our future and leaves a legacy that is fitting of what our community needs. And for the $200,000, to spend it now, absolutely critical. Once again, in my history in local government, to have shovel-ready projects for when grant funding does come up, it's just critical that you need to have that plan. It's no good saying you want something and you haven't got a proposal. And it has worked for us in the past. It's worked with out at the Trek. When the global financial crisis was on, we were the first council in Australia to actually get the funding for that because we had something that was shovel-ready. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Further speakers for or against? Or against first, sorry? For.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Like my fellow councillor Paul Betts, this has been talked about for many years. In fact, probably longer than some of the members of our council have been born. 37 years I've lived in Tamworth, and there's been consultancies, there's been designs, there's been meetings, and Councillor Ryder's been on council for 12 years. We've had lots of meetings leading up to this point, and it's the closest we've got, I believe, in a long, long time. So we have over many years had an opportunity, full opportunity to make input into this design and to the concept. We've had workshops and we've come to an agreement that this is what we need. As council, we have agreed that long ago. We've had workshops. This is not set in stone, this design. If I'm reading correctly, it's only a concept design. There's a lot more work to be done on it. That's why we're hopefully going to approve $200,000 to proceed with that. It's important too that this is just not an aquatic centre, it's a health centre. It's got many other facilities listed in it as are detailed in the report. We lose population because we don't have such a facility. The 16 years I've been on council, I have had many families come and say, you have to have this. They do. They relocate to give their children better opportunity for the competitive level of swimming. So, we're trying to attract population. We're trying to meet the needs of our population. Only last week I had an email that the parent can't get her 3-year-old into any swimming lessons. We don't have an aquatic centre. There's no 360 gyms booked out. It opened at 8 o'clock. It was all booked out by 8:01 for the swimming classes. There is nowhere to go. This facility is not just confined to one pool as such. It has a burn divider across the middle, giving 25 metres. You mentioned water polo, many other sports. They only need 25 metres. I've witnessed this when attending relatives swimming, my nieces and nephews in metropolitan areas, know exactly how it works. To learn to swim, they have a little area as big as this table, the whole kids in there learning to swim. It's normal. You don't need a whole 50-metre pool to teach one class to swim. It's divided up. The modern design of this allows for the floor to be raised or lowered to accommodate the different age groups for learn to swim, such an important skill that we all acknowledge we must have. I'm not comfortable at all with knowing a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old can't get in anywhere to learn to swim. How disgusting is that in a major regional centre? This will go a long way to alleviating those problems. We've talked about it for a long time. We got $15 million from the state government on the table. They obviously had believed in it. It was the previous state government. I'm sure this government, current one, believe in it. Let's hope the federal also come to the party with another $15 million, and we've budgeted for the other 15 from TRC. So let's just get on with it. Let's all pull together on this. If anyone wants to swim outdoor and enjoy the sunshine, go up to Katoomba. It's only 10 minutes up the road. Go and support Manila. They've got a nice big pool too. So there are plenty of outdoor opportunities for people to go and swim outdoors if that is what they want. So I'm fully in support of the Aquatics and Health Centre for our region.
Further comments, Councillor Sutherland?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I'm in full support of the recommendation. Since my time on council, which has only been short, had a number of conversations around what the aquatic future of the city and the region is going to look like, with some really detailed plans, and I'm astonished by Councillor Rodda's comments that we're unaware of the phases that this aquatic centre could take. We've had a number of conversations around what that it could potentially look like and the need to phase a development application like this to be able to meet the full needs of community over a period in time. The mentioning of and talking around, as Councillor Tickle mentioned, around our sporting clubs. We have a number of sporting clubs that use our pools, correct, and I agree with Councillor Rodda, but unable to participate in regional or state or national events because of a lack of facility. You know, as a region, our residents deserve better. We shouldn't have to travel hours and hours to reach a facility for us to meet the needs that we have. And so I think it's in the best interest of our entire community to be able to have services and facilities like this to meet the needs so our young aspiring athletes can grow and develop as athletes here in amazing state-of-the-art facilities. And I'm going to also just make comment about the comment around railroading. I cannot see how, as a council, we could be railroading ourselves. We have come up with conversations. We're submitting a development application on behalf of council. I don't know how we could railroad ourselves with factual information against ourselves. It's very contradictory in that manner, and I take offence to the idea that we're operating off a false pretense of false information. As a council, as an elected official, I think we have the responsibility to provide community with true and accurate information. And development applications should reflect that, and I am in full belief that this does so.
Yes, Councillor Sutherland. Further comments? Councillor Cates.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I do agree with my fellow councillors, and I actually believe we need this facility at this point in time, or at least to start working on this facility. We have had the workshops, we've had multiple, we've had all, had agreements about what's needed. And you hear visitors when they come to our region about what fantastic sporting facilities we have, and then we turn around and we've got a couple of ageing pools that are going to cost us somewhere between $10 to $20 million in the next 10 years. And then we have this option put in front of us. And I think we need to remember that what we're actually trying to do is just allocate some money to fund a detailed design. We've got the concepts and it does look really well, really good. And I think that I acknowledge that, there are user groups in the community who feel like they may actually miss out. But we need to remember that this is a community facility. and it's been designed in such a way that we can actually have multiple uses and so actually get value for money out of the design process. And I think we need to also remember that many of our sporting facilities and our other amazing facilities we have in the area have required a leap of faith to actually step out and go, well, yes, this is what we want, and yes, we're prepared to do it. We will do it in a way that will actually have as least impact as possible, but we need to take this step. One of my councillors made a comment about fit for purpose, and it's fit for purpose for 50 years because it's going to be brand new. And I just remember that, that is actually one of the objectives of fiscal responsibility, is actually having facilities that are fit for purpose and that we can actually use well into the future. And I think that I'd just like to say that it's good to note that there are considerations that are being made in this design phase to ensure that we actually have maximum efficiency for future operation. So I think, this is not just about we like the look of this and, it's all fluffy. There's actually been a lot of thought put into this design, and to be able to progress that and hopefully get the funding that we require, I fully support that.
Further comments, councillors? Councillor Mears?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I support just about everyone at the table's opinion on this. It is a much needed facility for Tamworth, but I do also take Councillor Rodder's point that it could be very well in the design. So hopefully moving forward with this funding, those designs will be brought back for a much better review and for councillors to look at. Because I too don't see any point of having what would appear to be a 20 metre floating roof sitting over the middle of nowhere, external. So we already know that council's strapped for cash. As we'll find out later in tonight's meeting too, there's been a significant increase in rates because we don't have the money. We do have a lot of the money for this project, but if we can minimise the cost by bringing down the ultra-modernistic design, I guess, for want of a better word, and come up with something that may be significantly cheaper to build and provide, then I think that's something we should certainly take note of and look at it in the future.
Thanks, Councillor Mears. I think we've all spoken. I'll just make one comment. I think we're all sitting around the table tonight talking about something that we're hoping we can bring to fruition. And a lot of that will be dependent upon the federal government hopefully giving us that $15 million tonight in their budget, because we've been waiting on that $15 million announcement following an application quite some time ago to help us support this particular development. We've got $15 million from the previous state government. We now need that $15 million contribution from the feds and a commitment there so that we can move forward and actually turn this into reality. So I think we're all hoping beyond hope that might happen. We've all spoken, so I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against? Aye. Council, we'll move on to item 8.2. Move Councillor Rodder, seconded Councillor Sutherland. Councillor Rodder, you wish to speak?
Yeah, just quickly, Mr Mayor, that many of the participants noted the numbers noted in the report bring their partners and families, so the benefit, economic benefit, is magnified more than what is stated in the report. And anyone that's actually been down there on that weekend will see that. This carnival provides tangible benefits, economic benefits to our region. I definitely support the FIFA waiver request.
Anyone wishing to speak against that recommendation? Further comments on the recommendation? Councillor Coates.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And I think with the projected 900 plus competitors, this is another significant economic injection into our local economy. And I just have to say kudos to Tamworth Baseball for hosting this event for over 50 years. That's quite a milestone to reach. I will just express one concern, and as Councillor Rodder rightly pointed out, we can probably nearly double the amount of people that are going to be in our city at that time for that particular carnival. And we also have a gymnastics event on that weekend. So I've just mentioned that probably, there's going to be quite a stretch on our accommodation for that weekend. But I totally support the fee waiver.
Councillor Bates, any further comments? There being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Council was removed to 8.3, Traffic Regional Regional Local Traffic Committee. Moved Councillor Betts, seconded Councillor Coates. Councillor Betts, you wish to speak to that?
Yes, Mr Mayor, just to highlight one of the items, but two little really safety improvements for Bendemeer is the one way across Savannah Street, across the McDonald River. The old bridge, the old structure, which is a heritage item, is no longer fit for purpose for pedestrians to go across there. And Bendemeer is becoming a real tourist area. Now, I was up there recently and seen the number of people walking across that low-level bridge. It was quite dangerous, and children on their bikes riding from one side to the other. So I think it's going to be a significant benefit for the community of Bendemeer. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Anyone wish to speak against any items in the Traffic Committee? Further comments on those items? Councillor Coates?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to make an addition to my fellow councillor's comment about Bendemeer. Having the alternate access around Elberg's Gully is going to be a huge safety impact. It's been quite some time that they've actually been asking what's going to happen to the little collapsed footbridge, which was used by anyone and a lot of school students when they were walking along there. So for quite some time, they've actually had to walk along the road without any protection either to the gully or from the road itself. So I just acknowledge that I think the people of Bendemeer will be very happy with that update.
Further comments, councillors? There being no further comments, recommendation, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. We move now into item 9, which is Governance Strategy and Finance, and we move to 9.1, Integrated Planning and Reporting Exhibition of the Draft Annual Plan and Budget. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Oh, and sorry, before I ask for a mover and a seconder, I'd just like to talk about some changes, and they'll be up on the board. Basically, deleting of dot point 3 completely. We go to 4 on your business papers, and you take out that first sentence. Note that that as the decision of IPART is unknown, full stop, that section comes out. Then we go down to item 5, and we remove the sentence, endorse the adoption of the base case budget as an interim budget to cover the possibility that IPART award an SRV increase greater than 0 but less than the SB application amount, full stop. We're deleting that. We go to the next sentence and we see, should a lesser SRV increase be granted? Well, we do get rid of granted, and we will say, should a lesser SV increase be adopted by council? So they're the changes that we've had to make as a result of today's announcement. Is everyone okay with that, understanding of that? It is up there. But I just wanted to read out so you were familiar with it, and the people in the audience are familiar with what we've actually changed within the printed recommendation. Having done that, I'll call again for a mover and a seconder. Could I have someone move? Councillor Betts, seconded Councillor Sutherland. Now, Councillor Betts, do you wish to speak to that?
Only very briefly. This is draft, going out for draft public exhibition, and I'm sure that there will be a significant amount of community input, and council will need to go out to the community to make sure that everyone fully understands where we're at with this, the draft and the plan. So I think that's about all we can say, but it's going out for community consultation.
Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Councillor Mears.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Given the short notice of this item and today's decision with the IPART, there's a lot of information that I believe that we need to go through. It's a bit hard to amend a motion on the run in council, and I would propose a motion that we defer this motion to the next meeting, giving council sufficient time to go through the IPART review prior to it coming back to council, and then we have a better idea of what is actually going into public consultation.
Councillor Mears, before I call for a seconder for that, do you understand that what we're going
Yes.
at was with our draft report on a base case with no changes, but also with another case for the 36.3%. So both of those will sit on the table together for the community to look at. So there's nothing that has changed much other than we've just had a clarification that we are going to be granted the 36.3 should the council choose to adopt that on June the 25th when they adopt their budget. So really what you're saying is we should put on hold, but I can't see what the reasons are, because we're looking at the base case with no rate rise in this draft report that's going out for public consultation. We're also looking at the case that what it would look like if the 36.3% was given, and which it has been authorised to give to us, but we have to make that decision ourselves. So nothing's really changed. We should be all very aware of what that 36.3 looks like if we do adopt it on the 25th of June, and we should all be also be very aware of what the base case looks like. So there'll be nothing to be gained by putting it off, in my opinion. But if you wish to move a deferral, then you can get a seconder and
Well, given that both cases are going out for public consultation, I will withdraw that notice or that motion. However, what I would like to ask is, given the last lot of consultation, how much weight will be given to the residents if they're given the option of 0 to 4.5, whatever it was, and or with the special rate variation? It was quite abundantly clear from the last consultation period, and this is coming from residents, not from me, that their input was certainly not considered. It was considered trivial that there was only 800 submissions and a 4,000 or 3,000 member petition. From the people that have actually contacted me on a number of occasions today, their concerns are that what's the point of putting both out when obviously council aren't going to listen to what the people want anyway. So I'm happy that both models will go out. My concerns still are, or those are the residents that I've spoken to, is irrespective of what options are put on the table, we'll end up with a 36.3% increase.
Councillor Mears, just to answer your question to that part, all of those submissions came in, they were looked at by council and so forth, but every one of those submissions went to IPART, and IPART reviewed every one of those submissions. And in item 6 of the IPART's report and review and decision-making document, they identified how many submissions they received, they identified what they raised as concerns. So every one of those was forensically looked at. They haven't been let go at all. And there's, in that report, it talks about everything to do with every submission that was put forward. So I can assure the community that not only the council looked at them, but IPART forensically looked at every submission. Does that answer your question?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, it does. However, I do note that on several occasions, the number of submissions that were put to our council was trivialised in the media by members of council, and many of the residents are extremely disappointed in that, and to the point that publicly 2 of the councillors were criticised at only voting against that decision to gain votes in next September's election, and that was publicly by a senior member of staff or the council on 88.9, which I took offence to. I said all along that my position was pretty much set in stone and why I'd be voting for that, or the way I did, but to then have myself and other councillors criticised for making that decision based on...
Point of order, Mr Mayor, this is not relevant to the matter of business in front of council.
Okay, I don't know. Simple.
Councillors, further comments? Councillor Sutherland.
Yep, just a quick comment in support of the recommendation to put these documents out on public exhibition. I think it's really great to see the community strategic plan and what it looks like in the course of this term, and these internal planning and reporting documents in line with trying to deliver on those outcomes, and to really see the impact of what the base rate could look like in comparison to the option of if a special rate variation was to be adopted and what that looks like in real terms, I think is really good to see, and to be able to read through that was something that I found very beneficial.
Thanks, councillor Sutherland. Further comments? Councillor Pratt.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just want to remind people that this is another opportunity to have a look at the two scenarios that were proposed before this submission went to IPART. And I think it gives us an opportunity then to go back and actually remember why we've done this in the first place, that we've actually, council has been at the forefront, many councils at the forefront of cost shifting and rate pegging, and that's actually what has driven us to actually look at another option in terms of the rates that we're charging. And I think, when people are reading, and I do hope people actually read through this document and ask questions if they don't understand, because this is something, rather than just making a comment, try and understand and actually get your head around why it is that council is actually asking and has had approved this rate rise, because none of us, whether it's a resident, myself, my family, my friends, anyone at this table, we don't want to actually have to have a rate rise. But when you look at the actual objectives of fiscal responsibility, they're the things that contribute to why we've actually had to go down this pathway. And things like having fully funded operating systems and maintaining cash to fund ongoing operational and capital requirements, and maintaining an asset base, that is fit for purpose. I think when we start to have a look and read these documents, and I do implore the public to do that and compare the two scenarios, just remember those things. And as a council, we make difficult decisions, but we do actually make them with our community at heart. And I think people probably need to just keep that in mind. We're not the enemy. We're trying to actually keep our council, our region, our residents in an area that is actually progressing while maintaining as much of the quality of services that we've delivered in the past. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Southwell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just briefly, I guess adding on to Councillor Coates' comments, not only will you be able to review both scenarios, but I also encourage the community to look at our draft delivery plan, annual plan and budget, and our revenue policy and fees and charges. This is the time when it's on public exhibition for people to make comment about where we're allocating funds and whether, we should be allocating less funds somewhere and more funds somewhere else. And as a council, we have these types of conversations all the time where we say, oh, I'd love to be doing that. Or where are we going to get the money from? It's got to come from somewhere. There's only so much of the pie that sits here. So when it comes to what's happening with IPART, my comments are, look, it is very, very difficult, as Councillor Coates has mentioned. It's not an easy decision to look at all the information and say, yeah, we need to apply for a special rate variation. However, in this role as councillor, we sign up to doing the best things for our community. And my belief is we are a growing regional centre, and we don't want to be going backwards. We've got a number of fantastic projects up and coming, and to not do this would be would just cause our council to go backwards. We're constantly going forwards. It does make you've got to make difficult decisions sometimes in order to improve, and sometimes they're unpopular ones, and that's the fact that's been before us throughout our term on council. And you can see some of the difficult decisions that have been made in the past. We were criticised for ALEC, we were criticised for TREC, criticised every amazing project that this council's ever done. And this will be another one where we look back and go, that was the right decision. And as highlighted in the Northern Daily Leader this morning, the average rate payout will be about $200 increase for the year, which is not a small amount of money, but that's what we're looking at here, $200 for an increase. So, look, it is a difficult decision. I'd also encourage the community to have a look at this. Now, you don't have to read through all of this information. There is hundreds, thousands of pages here, but there are summary pages. So if you look at the delivery plan, there's a summary page of what will be delivered in the next 12 months. Some of the things like improving our streetscapes, working on water security, aquatic facilities, the list goes on. So have a look at those summary pages and make sure that this is what you want for our community. If it's not, write a letter, write an email, call the council and tell us what you think. Thanks.
Thanks, councillor Southwell. Councillor Rodder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, this is a perfect opportunity for members of the public to have input into our next budget, and I certainly would be encouraging as many people as possible to contact council through the relevant means that will be available to them. In relation to IPART, I understand the scepticism of people because I've seen it with water and electricity. You do question how independent they actually are, that organisation, and while they may have reviewed all of those submissions from last year submitted by council and Morrison Lowe to IPART, it still comes up with even despite 97% of people that were surveyed said no, it still comes up with yes. So I understand what Councillor Mears was saying in relation to concerns regarding submissions that might be made that are opposing it. I mean, how many would be enough for council then to listen and say, hey, we won't proceed with that full amount, or we'll do this amount, or we'll defer it, or whatever into the future, because I am concerned about the serious financial stress and cost of living pressures that people are suffering. Electricity, food, fuel, rent, interest rates. And this will be just another kick in the guts to many budgets of ratepayers, residents, businesses and farmers. Of those, as I said, of those surveyed, 97% of our ratepayers said no, and I believe it would be telling how effective community consultation is if we aren't going to listen to it. So I would certainly encourage as many people as possible, if they are concerned about this, to contact council and make a submission. I don't want there to be any ambiguity about where I stand and who I stand with this on this matter. But having said that, in relation to this matter, I will support this motion as long as I believe councillors are given all documentation in relation to how this survey and consultation process will be carried out, including questions to be asked in any survey that may be undertaken. Because I think our residents, the message I get, our residents are well and truly sick of being cajoled into outcomes of not of their doing.
Thanks, Councillor Rodder. Further comments, councillors?
If everyone's finished.
I'd just like to make a couple of comments, councillors. And Councillor Rodder, you talk about the 97% of people who are opposed to it. I think we've got to put that into some perspective. There's 30,000 or nearly 30,000 ratepayers in our local government area. And I think looking at IPART's report this afternoon, there's less than 2,000 submissions. A very small percentage of our ratepayer number has actually made submissions. And yes, if anybody's going to make a submission about a cost increase, and I would do the same if I was going to make a submission, I'd be likely not to support an increase in the cost, whether it be electricity, fuel, water, or whatever it might be, or in this case rates. But the community need to understand that 97% is not really truly representative of a number of people within our local government area that have spoken out against it. There are 30,000 or nearly 30,000 rate notices in this city, and that's talked about in that IPART report, and less than 2,000 have actually responded. So it's certainly not 97%, but I just make that point. I think it's a very good point to make. And Councillor Tickle, you want to ask a question?
I haven't got a question, I've got a statement. Because I haven't spoken yet.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Tickle.
But you did close the debate. But very, very briefly, I think that we need to continue our excellent communication skills, and it seems no matter what we do, we don't reach everybody, on the rate rise, that it is only on the general rate portion. Even today someone was calculating, and they were calculating on the total amount of the rate. Like, we've done everything we can, even the nice little photo of the rate notice and pointing to where it's affected, because I really do think, and I'd be interested in all the people that everybody's talked to about it, if they are pointing that out to them, that it's only on the general rate portion, not on the total bill. And I'm sure if that was pointed out and articulated clearly, we may not have the angst that a lot of you have been presented with, and that we all mix in different circles. That's what we're all here for on council. And some people can quite understand it, some can't. But I'm even finding people I would have thought understood still don't understand that it is only on the general rate portion. So it is not as large amount as they perhaps think. So I would suggest that we keep that conversation going, and when people are bringing their concerns to, check with them that they know that it's only, I don't know whether you're doing that with all these people that are very, very concerned and can't afford it, but point out that it is on the general rate part only, and that might ease their concerns somewhat.
And before you close the debate, Councillor Betts, I just want to make another couple of comments. One is that last week in Sydney at Country Mayors, there was a financial sustainability report presented to country mayors about the 128 councils in New South Wales. And I have to say it is very gloomy, and that every local government area within our state is in a fair bit of financial stress. And I think that's even highlighted by the fact that the federal government are now commissioning an inquiry into the financial viability and sustainability of local government across the nation. They have recognised that we're all in trouble. So I'll hand back to you, Councillor West, to close the debate.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, everything's been pretty much said that I was going to close the debate with. But yeah, we've been under rate pegging since the late 70s in New South Wales, and that has had a compounding effect, a negative effect, that is the amount of the capacity of councils to pay. And in the same time, there has been a state and a federal level, since then, increased unfunded mandates, which has made so much pressures on council that it's just put us to a point where if we don't get this rate variation, the future viability of the infrastructure could be put severely at risk. What I would urge the community to do is look at both scenarios. Look at what would the scenario of the rate rise be and what the sustainability is. And also look at what, if we don't do anything, if we just keep it status quo, is what our future will look like for our children in the fairly near future, within the 5 or 10 years. And I tell you what, it's not good. I have looked at this whole report a number of times, and it is a little bit frightening if we do not keep up with the level of expenditure required on our maintenance of our infrastructure. And this really is only almost a maintenance one, not necessarily a grandiose building Taj Mahals. It's maintenance of our roads, maintenance of our general infrastructure. So it is then up to council, I would say, to make sure that our community, because this is draft, get out there and really understand, push the two scenarios, what we would look like under the 36% and what is under the do nothing. And that's all I can implore the council to make sure that we do as a term. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Councillors, the debate is now closed. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Councillors, will now move on to item 9.2, amendment to ordinary council meeting date schedule. Could I remove the seconder? Move Councillor Cates, Councillor Mears. Councillor Cates, you wish to speak to that?
Thank you.
Councillors, that's a pretty straightforward report, so I'll ask for no one to speak against that. Okay, we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Councillors, we'll get on to item 10, which is community services, and 10.1, Tamworth Regional Community Safety Working Group. Could either move in a second? Move Councillor Mears, seconded Councillor Cates. Councillor Mears, you wish to speak to that?
Yes, Mr Mayor. Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I think this is a marvellous opportunity for exploration of what support we can give in this area. It's been on the agenda for quite some time, about the last 3 state elections, I guess. And we're no closer to getting anything done. So it's great to see the Safety Working Group Committee get behind this. I'd also like to add that in about a week and a half ago, the MLC's Anthony D. Adams and think it's Stephen Lawrence, visited Tamworth, and they have, at least MLC Lawrence has some significant skin in the game with this. Has the Mayor at Dubbo got a facility of similar proportions in Dubbo, even with a non-Labor government. So they're certainly talking about the benefits and the need for facilities such as this. And not only should we contact our local member, Mr Anderson, I think it would be very advantageous to contact both Anthony D. Adams and Stephen Lawrence in relation to speaking to them on what assistance and or funding might be possible.
Thanks, Councillor Mears. Anyone wish to speak against the items in the recommendation? Further comments on the recommendation? Councillor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I certainly support this because, as attendees at the Community Safety Working Group indicated that it's well overdue to have something that will address not only dependence on illicit materials, but also the crime that seems to carry over from that issue. There was two two facilities required. The local detox centre, which is required to be co-located close to the hospital for obvious reasons, and residential rehab to be located elsewhere. And so I'm not sure how we can help in land around the hospital or facilities around the hospital, but certainly we may be able to help elsewhere with the rehabilitation side of it. I mean, there is no quick answer to drug dependency, but this is a step in the right direction. I know that they were supporters. The fair treatment people were supporters of decriminalising some illicit materials, but certainly that's not going to be something that we would pursue. That would be a discussion that can be had at Commonwealth and state level. But certainly I think that in terms of the issues that afflict rural areas, this is a step in the right direction.
Further comments, councillors? Councillor Southwell.
Just a question around part 2, point B, investigate any funding options that may be available. I'm assuming that would be more grant funding rather than council funds for this?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
through you, Mr Mayor, yes, definitely. That's grant funding, which may assist in preparing a business case.
Yeah, could I just ask that we put in an amendment there which includes the word grant funding, because it could be misinterpreted that it could mean council funding. Yes, yeah. I'd just like to add to that although I am supportive of this facility, keeping in mind some of the discussions we've had earlier in this meeting around cost shifting, we're certainly not the health department or the state government, and although this sort of facility is extremely important, I am supportive of looking at council-owned land in order to encourage others to help them build such a facility. But this is not council's area to be building this sort of drug and alcohol rehabilitation facility. That's certainly the Department of Health and the state government. So if I could just add in that grant funding word, that would be...
Would the Mayor and the Secretary be happy to insert the word grant in between potential and funding?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, just another addition was the two legislative councillors that Councillor Mears mentioned. If we could add them to dot point C.
Did they go to the meeting?
They weren't.
So this is really about the minutes from that meeting, so we can't really talk about that. This was about the minutes of the meeting. Okay, is that right? They didn't go to the meeting, did they go to the meeting?
No,
Okay.
Did Mr Anderson?
Pardon?
Did Mr Anderson go to that meeting?
I'm not sure whether he did or not, but you are writing to him. If you wanted to add into that last C, write to those people, by all means put that in there. Yeah.
That's what I was asking.
If you're aiming to do that, okay.
That'd be acceptable.
So there's a mover and seconder happy to add their names.
I am, yes.
Steve Lawrence and Andrew,
Anthony D. Adams.
how do you spell that?
D.I. Adams.
We'll look it up.
Thank
So,
D
are the
apostrophe Adams.
mover and seconder happy to include that? Okay. Any further comments? Councillor Coates.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And I think we've already pointed out that this is basically a resolution at the meeting to investigate how council could assist. And the committee actually understood that it's not council's role to provide such facilities. But I think council can once again play the role of a facilitator, an advocator, and actually bring the stakeholders to the table to collaborate, because this is going to require a collaboration of many, many organisations in this area to then seek funding from the relevant bodies. So I fully support it, and I think that, if we can get it moving ahead, rather than just having a talk fest about it, it would be excellent.
Further comments, councillors? There being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against, carried. Move on to 10.2, Tamworth Regional Youth Council. We'll have a move in the seconder. Move councillor Sutherland, second councillor Southwell. Will you speak to that?
Yes, please, Mr Mayor. I'm just happy to receive and note the minutes of the meeting. The Youth Council is definitely on an upward trajectory, which is a big comment to say because they're already at such a high standard. The commitment to supporting fair treatment and the campaign behind there was really positive and strong from a young people's perspective around the support from vulnerable people in that space. And I just want to make a comment to say that the youth strategy that has been recently adopted by council is been supported by our youth council and the youth action plan that accompanies with it. 12 months ago, we had a really big statement here as a council to throw resources to the amount of $10,000 to the budget for our youth council to use at their discretion to deliver on actions from their approach on the youth action plan. And I think that it's an ongoing commitment to say that that's going to be a recurrent commitment to supporting our youth council to make sure that we have youth initiatives led by young people and driven by young people. Sometimes it's about making sure that we can create a pathway and then step out of the way. And I think that is a great opportunity for us to support the Youth Council, and so I'm in full support of this recommendation.
Anyone wish to support the youth recommendation? Councillor Southwood, will you make a comment?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just to add to Councillor Sutherland, this was a really important meeting for the Youth Council, and I think the important thing just to highlight item 4 and item 5, I think to roll over those funds and to have annual recurrent funding for implementation of this strategy is super important. They've obviously just developed the Tamworth Regional Youth Strategy and Action Plan. There's a lot of actions in there. Some require funding, some don't. But without funding, it will limit the ability to implement that strategy. And a lot of the strategy is focused around the life-ready, wellbeing, access and connectivity and community identity pillars. So in this particular meeting, they decided that as a group, and it's not in the report, but they were going to work out which of the priorities they want to work on initially within that action plan. And they were going to agree on those so they can start ticking them off the list, which is fantastic to see. So they are a very, very keen bunch of young people. And I think in order for them to implement this strategy, we really do need to have those funds rolling over and also allowing it to be recurrent funding for them to implement it. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Southwell. Further comments, councillors? There being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. We'll move there on to 10.3. Could I have a move in a second? I move Councillor Betts, second Councillor Sutherland. You wish to speak there, Councillor Betts?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Happy to support the recommendation and the increase of funding. I know we had some workshops and Councillor Sutherland was very forthright in the fact that we do need to increase the funding for the art, and also the one I'm really focusing on is the maintenance, the funding for maintenance of our art. We've got some beautiful art in our community, and if we don't preserve it and maintain it, we're going to lose that asset. And art, some of it lasts forever, but some of it doesn't, and I'm just happy to support the whole recommendation, but particularly the maintenance side. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Further comments? Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I certainly support the increased investment, and I think one thing to remember, since 2015, when we actually did some mapping, we had 78 pieces of public art, and then in 2022, that had actually increased to more than 162. So we had an increase of 100%, more than 100%, but no corresponding increasing in budget. And I think even, at this point in time, if we did no further public art pieces, we do at least need to put our money into the investments we've already made and maintain those assets. So I fully support the recommendation.
Councillor Southwell, thank you.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'm very, very supportive of the work that's been done in this area in the Tamworth Regional Arts Strategy and the policy. The policy obviously sets the framework, but the funding here is very important. And I think that, it is, it's a small amount of money in the big scheme of things when you're talking about art. Art is not particularly a cheap thing to implement within our region, and obviously the maintenance as well, which has already been talked about. But the outcomes are very, very hard to measure, but there has been some work done in this space around improving the culture of a region and the people that live there, improving the identity and feelings of identity towards a place, sense of well-being, obviously huge outcomes around tourism. And if anyone's ever visited places like Orange and Mudgee, they're attraction-style regional centres. People are attracted to them because of their food, their culture, their art. There's a whole range of things, and art plays a really important thing. So in the same sense spoken about earlier in the meeting, to have like an average pool with a bit of a shed over the top, is that going to attract people? The same sense here with public art. We can't just shut down these sorts of things. We need to build it up. And I think this is pretty much the bare minimum that we should be doing in order to make sure that our art that we've already invested in is preserved into the future. Thanks.
Further comments, councillors? Councillor Rodder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I support this. I was interested to read the paragraph in relation to public art may cover a wide range of art forms and mediums, including, among others, and it goes to fountains and water features. I still think Cable, that section of Fitzroy Street between Cable Avenue and Peel is lacking that. That was, an integral part of that design originally, and it was removed. And it's something that I'd like to think that we could investigate into the future. In relation to what Councillor Southwell just said, I think that I'm off the track here, but I'm just thinking of the buildings that are already located out of the Sporting Centre of Excellence, and I think you'd like to have something that's sympathetic to that area.
Further comments, councillors? Councillor Tickle.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Fully supportive of the recommendation, but I'd also like to just make the comment with the public art. Like, so much of our public art has been the result of community groups and members working together to raise funds and access grants external to council to help realise those projects. And one such one is the silo project at Barraba, and many of our other pieces of public art that we see around the city, including a number of the country music busts and monuments. But I just say that in that council is supportive of public art, and we do provide funding towards it. But I did want to acknowledge the hard work that the community put in as well towards those projects. And like all things, if the community are part of it, it has a lot more meaning. In some instances, Junior, I know that when grants are applied for, there's a maintenance factored into that, and it's able to be held into the maintenance fund. It depends, of course, on the nature of the grant. It's not always possible, but I think that's something we should be striving for as well, because it does take a lot of maintenance. I mean, just the whaler alone just recently cost us many, many thousands of dollars because some vandal decided to break off a steerer, you know, and this is the sort of expenses that council had that the general public don't always realise. And again, I think we have a responsibility to keep reminding people of such expenses that are way outside our control. But wonderful document, and thanks to the staff for the enormous amount of work that's gone into that. Also our friends of the gallery and all the other community groups that have been involved in helping to bring this together, the whole public art strategy. And we certainly need to maintain what we have, including all our other assets that council own, and that would all cost money to maintain, and the money's got to come from somewhere.
Councillor Sullivan.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor, and I'm in full support of fellow councillors in supporting this recommendation. I think one of the really big points to make when it comes to our public art strategy, as has been updated from its previous format, is the focus on cultural tourism and the impact that cultural tourism, if done successfully, can have in the boost of any community's economy. You know, so to make sure that the inclusion of cultural tourism is embedded in this strategy, I think is very smart, you know, and a credit to the staff for including that in the strategic direction forward for the organisation. And as I mentioned with the youth strategy, I think when we talk around investing in community and making sure that we provide some funding as a base to be able to look at aspirational projects, as Councillor Tickles mentioned, it's always helpful to have a base to go from an organisation, say that we are committed and this is what our commitment looks like. And so really happy in the direction this is moving forward to, and really happy to support the recommendation.
Further comments, councillors? There being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Councillors, we move there to item 11, reports to be considered in closed council. I'll, before I ask for a motion to move into closed council, I'll ask the General Manager if any items in closed council being requested by members of the public to be held in open council.
No, Mr.
Is there anyone in the audience wishing to raise any matters in closed council to be held in open council? If they're not being, I'll call for a motion to move into closed council. Councillor Coates, seconded Councillor Southwell. All those in favour say aye. Aye. And we'll move into closed council. Thank you for your attendance, members. General Manager, I'll call the report on matters in closed council.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, to report of the closed session of the ordinary council meeting held on the 14th of May 2024. In closed council this evening, you considered 3 items of business, and for each of those items, you adopted the recommendations as per the business.
Thank you. Could I have a motion to accept? Councillor Southwell.
Yeah.
Councillor Coates, all those in favour, say aye.